Hello Go Wilders, this is this week's Small Wild Act of Wellness, and this week as I was laying on my back doing my yoga in the woods and I was just finishing my practice and looking up at the birch leaves against the sky, and I thought a lot about how we don't often pay attention to the spaces, to the gaps between things. And this counts really for the way we live our lives too, doesn't it? Quite often we find ourselves, we'll clean our teeth and then we'll go straight on and wash our face, and then we'll go straight out to the kitchen and we'll make breakfast, and then we go straight from making breakfast to washing up or getting ready for work, or, it's always next thing. And I think one of the things that I'm hoping that we can cultivate in ourselves through our 50 Wild Acts of Wellness is a way of staying in the spaces, giving ourselves a bit more space, giving ourselves some room in between things. And I think we'll be happier people if we get a chance to integrate the activities that we do before we move on to the next thing. So I wondered whether this small practice this week that I'm about to tell you might help us. It might be kind of like a little springboard for giving us some impetus to find those little gaps in our day. And so I'm going to suggest that we spend maybe once or twice a day outside, as it's summertime now. And rather than sitting and looking at objects that capture our attention, because we're constantly looking, aren't we? Our eyes are constantly being drawn to movement or to different things. But very rarely do we actually spend time looking at the spaces between things. So, take 5 minutes, sit outside and maybe just look at a tree or look at a plant in the garden or some flowers. But instead of going to the obvious places, like looking at the rose, maybe look at the space between where the rose and the leaves are. And just give some attention to kind of those negative spaces, I guess you might call them, that we may not necessarily look at so much. And, if we can take a couple of minutes out of our day, maybe a few times a day just to do that, or even if you're on a walk to work, it doesn't have to be natural things. It could be looking at buildings and noticing, where the roof meets the sky, or where the gap between the next building is and the next building is. So rather than looking at maybe the chimney pot, you're looking at the gap between the chimney pot. Just to kind of maybe start that mental process. It's sort of like a neural pathway, isn't it, of trying to cultivate the space between things. And then maybe we might find that our daily practices, we might start to find that we can find those pauses for ourselves to allow ourselves to breathe in between each activity that we do throughout the day. And yes, that might mean we'll have to do less activities, but I think that can only be a good thing, really, if we're honest. So I hope you have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you next week. Bye.